All right, welcome back, everyone. My name is Aaron Hunter. I am a senior technical trainer with AWS Training Certification, and with me we have.
I'm A.M. Grabelny. I'm a solutions architect at AWS, an aging punk rocker. We've got some guests with us, some wonderful guests. Tell us, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Kaushik Mohanty. I lead AWS's control services, business development and specialist sales. I focus predominantly on the worldwide public sector business.
And I'm Matt Yanchishin. I'm the general manager for Control Tower Service Catalog, and I'm a recovering solutions architect.
Recovering.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, for a bit.
Yeah, just for a little few.
Just on stage. I'll give you honorary SA.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't have that
For,
power.
for a little while, yeah.
Yeah.
At least during the next 17 minutes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What are we talking today, Aaron?
Why are you here today?
Okay, we want to talk about one of the services that has had widespread adoption. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that we are able to communicate what's been going on with the service so that you get access to documentation and all the help which is out there. And the pace of adoption being so high, we want to make sure that you are at the cusp of making the best out of governance in a multi-account setup. So let me start a little bit about how this journey started. It all started with a single account strategy, which is what most customers got started with when they embraced this, their cloud journey on AWS. And they ran into problems with regard to managing permissions, ran into problems with regard to getting account limits set right.
Sorry, Kaushik, I don't want to interrupt. I don't know that we actually got the service name out there. So we're talking about AWS Control Tower today, right?
It was supposed to be suspense,
Matt's
yeah.
right there.
Nice sticker, I like that. I mean, nice shirt.
Yeah, there's no logo under this sticker, so
Can I get a shirt like that?
Yeah, we have lots of swag.
I'll trade
We
you.
brought
I'll
some
give you one of
stickers.
these.
Yeah, sure.
You can totally make
That's
one for-
definitely what I need is more swag from conferences, so I appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
AK just stole the thunder away from me. So
I know,
anyway,
I'm sorry,
so
yeah, but we're talking Control Tower, and when you talk Control Tower,
talk
you
about
obviously have to think about multi-account, but I've got a question for you, Kaushik.
Sure.
Why am I not okay with just using a single account? Like, what's wrong with approaching just a single account? Why do I need multi-accounts?
Sure. As the adoption of the cloud grew, single accounts became a little bit of a limitation, more from the perspective of managing permissions as there were more and more personas getting created across different applications and regions. Likewise, there were issues with regard to account limits because there would be conflict between the dev folks as well as the prod folks. If there was a spike in usage, seasonality, what have you, there were issues with regard to governance and, of course, blast radius, which was the biggest concern that most customers had. So enter Control Tower, predominantly set up to address the need for a multi-account setup and governance that customers went with. So we started the journey with greenfield customers deploying Control Tower in a brand new management account. And over time, we got a lot of feedback, good feedback from customers that that was something really cool and they wanted to use it in existing AWS deployments. And that's where we started supporting or deploying Control Tower in existing organizations. With that, I'll let Matt talk a little bit about how Control Tower manifests for most of our customers.
Yeah, I mean, people forget. Like just a few years ago, there was still this. I'm allowed to say like holy war, I guess, between single account versus multi-account.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it was really just 3 or 4 years ago. And actually, some customers are still kind of working through that. Should I put everything in 1 account, 2 account, 3 account? And really, what we've seen over the last couple of years is the boundary, the account boundary, is actually a really nice sort of isolation boundary from a security perspective. But like Kaushik was saying, there's quotas you bump up against, and there's just you can actually use this boundary to isolate the different microservices or different sort of stages, whether it's dev, staging, prod, whatever. You can use that boundary sort of effectively in a complex application, and so you can spread your workload or your application across multiple accounts. But that then comes with its own challenges, like how do I ensure consistency, applying the same governance, the same rules, whatever, across all those accounts. And that's where people started building what has come to be known as landing zones. How do I
Yes.
manage all of these accounts, how to deploy it, and that was awesome. And then suddenly you have, a couple hundred accounts and you're like, wow, managing this landing zone is taking this big team. This is what we call undifferentiated heavy lifting. So we created Control Tower to essentially help customers both deploy and manage a multi-account environment at scale to essentially have it as a managed service so they don't have to do it themselves.
Alleviate a lot of the overhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
One of the things I love too is that, as you mentioned, I think there's a lot of opinions about how to do this and why to do this, and even, should I separate or create a boundary at the VPC layer, or does it have to be the full account layer? And Control Tower gives a lot of that setup for you too, right out of the gate. You don't have to necessarily go and do deep research into this is the way to go set up multi-account, right? It'll take that kind of research out for you and just provision out things in our best practice way, right?
Yeah, I mean, you guys just had the well-architected folks on,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that was actually my old team. And I love that team and I love that initiative. And that was very much the same thing. Customers said, hey, I love you guys, but I'm coming to 4 different teams and they're telling me 4 different ways to build something.
Yeah.
So why don't we just have one way to build something? So really, Control Tower was born out of the well-architected best practices for building a well-architected environment, or rather a multi-account environment with appropriate controls. And that, so it's customers wanted opinions. And actually just yesterday I was talking with a customer and they said that, a few years ago with AWS, opinionated was a bit of a dirty word, but now they want opinions. They're like, there's so much choice.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us, how would you do it? Like if you were me, the customer, how would you build your multi-account environment? And that's Control Tower. And so we make decisions and we say, here are the trade-offs you could make to have less work, honestly, so you can do what you're supposed to be doing, which is deploying applications into your landing zone.
Really
Something
helping customers with best practices too, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just laying out the accounts, but also, I keep saying this word, guardrails or controls, but what things are we pretty sure we don't want anyone doing? Like we don't want anyone having a public S3 bucket, or we want to encrypt as much as possible. There's some baseline stuff that we've seen up across a bunch of customers that pretty much every customer wants to really insist that the people using their accounts do.
Yeah, I hear that from customers constantly, is we want opinionated guidance. We want you to tell us how to do those. And that was, when Control Tower came out, one of my favorite parts of it, because we're putting that out there. Here's the opinionated guidance. Can you walk through us some of the opinionated guidance that goes into Control Tower? What does Control Tower provision for you if I go and set up Control Tower today?
Sure. I mean, maybe this is a good time to switch to a quick demo.
Yeah,
Is that cool?
showing us.
All right.
Cool. Awesome.
So I guess cue the demo. Hopefully y'all can see it out on the internet. So hopefully you can see the dashboard, yeah?
I can see it.
All right, you can see it. So the dashboard, what you see here is the Control Tower dashboard and the AWS Management Console. This is my actually internal account that I use. You can see I have 4 or 5 organizational units. So Control Tower is built using existing AWS services, and this is a really important sort of tenet of our services. We build the service just like you, the customer, would if you were building your own landing zone, except that we manage it on your behalf. So we use AWS organizations, we use AWS config for detective guardrails or controls, we use SSO for federation, we use CloudTrail for log aggregation, all these things that customers would do anyway, and we just orchestrate them on your behalf. So
Really
here
good
you
for permissions and delegating permissions and so forth. Cool.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So I have 7 accounts. Most customers would have more than 7 accounts and 5 organizational units. The key thing to see here is that I have these accounts registered, the OUs registered, and they're compliant.
Could you do 30 seconds on what an organizational unit is, just for anybody watching who has never?
Yeah, sure.
Dealt with
So
one.
organizations is a way to, is a very powerful service, AWS organizations, that allows you to both create accounts and vend them into a tree structure, effectively, that represents either how your application is set up or how your business is set up. And an organizational unit is a cluster of accounts. So you might have an OU that is only used for, you can set it up however you want. We have some best practices that we can point you to. You could have an OU around a particular department at a customer, or it could be a particular stage of software development, like this is my dev or sandbox OU. That's a very common use case. And so in your OU or organizational unit, you associate accounts, and then you can apply rules to that OU, because the rules or the governance for, say, a collection of sandbox accounts is going to be different from the rules that you apply to production. And so it allows you to sort of segregate the governance by sort of use case or type.
Got it. That helps a lot. So here I see you have roots, and I also see you have sandbox, nested test within roots. So you're creating this organizational unit tree structure.
Exactly. And
Perfect.
that's a key thing that we came out with last year, which is support for nested OU, which allows you to have sort of a nested organizational unit structure. And the last thing I'll just show you quickly here, in addition to the accounts that are in there, you can see whether they're compliant. And this allows an administrator or a cloud architect to see, based on the rules that I've established for those accounts or OUs, have they drifted from those best practices? And it gives you that sort of centralized view to see, hey, what do I need to do to get these back into a secure posture or back into a best practices posture? And then these are the rules, what we call guardrails or controls. Again, like basics, and for the most part, that like most customers want, like disallow changes to encryption configuration for Amazon S3 buckets. That's something that like certainly any regulated customer here in DC would want. You want to make sure that encryption is enforced across all of your S3 buckets to the standards of your company. So we give you a rule that you can apply across a set of accounts that makes sure that that happens. And it's a mix of preventative and detective rules. Make sure it doesn't happen, detect that it didn't. So
It's great because, look, best laid plans. Everything's automated, everything's infrastructure as code. We only make changes through these types of operations. That doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes you get people clicking around in console, and you want to be able to make sure that you can detect or monitor when that happens, or even prevent it, like you're saying. So that's really helpful.
Can you report on all that? So if something goes outside that control or the guardrails, is there a way to report on it?
Yeah. So basically, the dashboard that he was showing calls out what accounts, even the resources spun by Control Tower, are falling out of compliance, so that you can take remediation measures. So there are two sets of guardrails that we typically use. One stems from the service control policies from AWS organizations, which sets up all the preventive guardrails. And the other set of guardrails that Control Tower enforces is through AWS config.
Okay.
And those are detective guardrails. And there's the other posture where you have mandated guardrails, and there is those strongly recommended guardrails.
So mandatory and strongly recommended. Absolutely. What's the difference between preventative and detective guardrails?
Yeah. Preventive guardrails are essentially set in terms of making sure that they take action, or they don't, in a way, allow certain things to happen. Bad actors, and some major deviations which could cause problems to the enterprise, they just don't happen. But with the detective guardrails, you have the option of taking action after a misalignment has been detected. So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
one thing that has happened, which I would like Matt to talk a little bit about, is how we've been kind of fine-tuning Control Tower and enhancing performance because of a lot of parallelization of implementation of guardrails and other aspects. So would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I love talking about performance. What do you think?
Twist your arm, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because we built. You were talking earlier about how the sense of being opinionated is something that customers are asking a lot more for. And so when we came out with Control Tower, like I'll be the first one to admit, and I can say this because I'm the GM, that like it was pretty rigid, right? And
Yes.
and as customers added more accounts to it and more OUs, and as they were sort of rolling out more rules across all these accounts, it wasn't performing at the level sometimes that they wanted to. So we put a lot of effort over the last year and a half, 2 years in performance and scaling. So now you can add a lot more accounts, but just as importantly, you're seeing the workflow performance increase by like upwards of 40+% across things like rolling out new rules across all those accounts. So we've been putting a ton of work into scaling and performance as kind of one of our key pillars, in addition to customization, because getting back to that rigidity, console only service initially, and customers wanted to do a lot more customization. It's funny because they're like, take care of this for me. And then once we launched the service, they're like, I kind of wanted to take care of some of this stuff.
Not that much.
Yeah, not that much. And so we've been focusing a lot of our roadmap and efforts on customization and extensibility. Like just this week, we launched the ability to bring your own core accounts, like security and billing accounts. So that was like a top ask. And you're going to see a lot more both performance scale and customization extensibility features over the next few months coming out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned earlier too, Matt, SSO. I'm curious, when you're dealing with multi-accounts, even in organizations, it's tough to scale out to roles and IAM users and things like that. Kaushik mentioned service control policies too. What are the roles here? Use of the word role is a little overloaded there. What is the purpose of having this centralized location for IAM, and access control in Control Tower?
Yeah, well, first of all, SSO is a really powerful tool, and I know you're going to be talking about SAML in a little bit.
Yes.
But just the ability to federate, and by that I mean use your existing identity store and then log into your AWS accounts with that sort of role that follows you. So I'm a developer on X team, I'm in an LDAP directory. You want the set of permissions that are assigned to me, or the set of things that I should be allowed to do, mapped to the AWS account. So that's what SSO allows you to do. It's one thing to create the accounts and apply rules to them, but those accounts are pretty useless if you don't let people actually use them. And it's also a pain, to be honest, if you need to use like a separate identity to log into AWS. Like I'm Matt at Amazon, I should be able to use that same identity and the rules and roles that come with it in my Amazon accounts. That's what SSO does. It bridges those two worlds of like my job and AWS. And so by setting up SSO on behalf, it allows customers to more quickly gain access to the accounts that Control Tower has set up for the multi-account environment. And really that's like, it cuts to the chase of what we're really trying to do is make it faster for customers to build an environment that is approved for use and that people can actually get into quickly. If you're a big company and you're trying to vend accounts for your internal customers, your developers to use, it's really important that they can get there fast, but that they're using it safely. So the controls allow you to use it safely, the account vending allows you to create the accounts properly in the right OU, and then the SSO, the federation, allows them to actually log into that without having to like learn a new password or whatever. They can federate using whatever identity their provider they're using through SSO into that Control Tower managed account.
You mentioned vending these different accounts. Is there an easy way to use Control Tower to do that for our customers?
Yeah, vending accounts is one of the key features. So it actually integrates with AWS Service Catalog, which is another service that I'm responsible for, and that something called the Account Factory. And now we support both Service Catalog and CloudFormation-based Account Factory, and also Terraform-based Account Factory for customers who are using Terraform.
They were here yesterday.
Yeah, I love those guys. HashiCorp and Terraform, good company, good technology. And so we give customers flexibility. Whatever provisioning engine you're using, you can use that to create and bootstrap, which is super important. Because it's one thing to create an account with like associated rules, but you also have to bootstrap it. Like what other third-party software are you using? What other services do you want to enable for that account to have access to? So we give you an ability to bootstrap that account. And that account vending is a really core part of the service.
So no such conversation is over without talking about regions. So Matt, you want to talk a little bit about how we help customers with their regional posture on AWS?
I don't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. We've got about 30 seconds left. I really would love to ask, is there anything you'd like our audience to take away from this talk, go do? Where can I learn more about Control Tower?
Can they email you?
Yeah, I guess they saw my email in the demo. Sure. So I love feedback, but I think the big takeaway is, we launched Control Tower. It was actually way more popular than we ever could have dreamt. It was amazing when we launched it, but it's gotten a lot more customizable and flexible certainly the last 6 to 12 months. So if you did look at it initially and you're like, hey, I want someone to help me manage my multi-account environment, my landing zone, but like, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, look again, because honestly, it's really evolved a lot, and you're going to see a lot more evolution in the next few months. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Dan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, stick around. Go check out Control Tower, but then come back and keep watching us live at the DC Summit.
Cheers.
Thank you.